Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're plunging straight into something truly historic and, frankly, utterly unexpected.
Yeah.
The election of an American, Cardinal Robert Prevost, as Pope Leo XIV. A genuine first. Blindsided quite a few people.
It's pretty remarkable, isn't it? The news has, well, it's certainly kicked off a global conversation. We've been looking at various sources, news reports, and quite detailed YouTube analyses, too, to really get under the skin of this election.
Exactly, because we're not just about the headlines here. Our mission, really, is to unpack the most, let's say, shocking, or at least the most interesting parts of this story. How did an American cardinal, against so many predictions, end up leading the Catholic Church? What are the surprising twists here?
On day 2 of the conclave, after just 4 rounds of voting, the world's 1.4 billion Catholics have a new pope. And in a first, he's American.
La pace sia con tutti voi.
I'm so excited that he's the U.S. Pope, the first U.S. Pope.
I never thought in my life I'd see an American Pope.
There had been so much talk that the church would not be ready, the Catholics would not be ready for an American Pope, but they have certainly been proven wrong today.
Okay, let's start with that initial shock. An American Pope.
Absolutely. And that initial wave of disbelief, it really comes through strongly in some of the YouTube analysis we looked at. You hear people saying things like, I never thought in my life I'd see an American Pope. And I honestly think some people are shocked. That kind of raw reaction, it tells you a lot.
And you can see why, can't you? I mean, historically, the papacy, it's been overwhelmingly European.
Massively so.
Over 90%, right? Only, 13 popes before this one were born outside Europe? And Pope Francis, okay, he was the first from the Americas, but Argentina, South America.
Yeah, different context.
So the idea of a pope from North America, it just felt like a very, very distant possibility for a lot of observers.
It certainly did. And, before the conclave, the speculation, the sort of smart money, it was on more familiar names.
Like who?
Well, the Italian Cardinal Pietro Parolin, the Filipino Cardinal Luis Tagle, they were the ones constantly mentioned as likely contenders.
So the American cardinal emerging. That was the surprise.
A big one. As one commentator put it, almost nobody expected this man to emerge. Makes you wonder what was going on inside that conclave, doesn't it?
And then there's the speed. I mean, getting a decision on the second day after just 4 rounds of voting.
Yeah, the analysis we saw called it very, very quick for the biggest conclave.
So what does that tell us? That speed.
Well, it's fascinating. In past conclaves, especially divided ones, it could drag on for days, even weeks. Lots of debate trying to build consensus.
Right.
The fact that they reached a decision so fast this time, it kind of suggests maybe a unifying figure emerged quite early. Someone who perhaps bypassed all that protracted negotiation we've sometimes seen. A different dynamic, maybe?
Okay, but here's where it gets really surprising, I think. He's American, yes, but Pope Leo XIV has these incredibly deep, almost unexpected ties to Peru.
Yes. This is, well, it's a huge element in understanding this surprising outcome. His American nationality is big news, obviously, but his time in Peru starting way back in 1985.
85?
Yeah, it seems to have really shaped his worldview and quite possibly his appeal to the other cardinals.
10 years teaching canon law in Trujillo. Then he actually became a naturalized Peruvian citizen in 2015.
That's commitment, isn't it?
It really is. And then serving as apostolic administrator, bishop, archbishop in Chiclayo. This wasn't just a short visit.
On May 8th, right here, the world witnessed the first appearance of Cardinal Robert Francis Prevost as Pope Leo XIV. This after only 4 ballots. He is the first ever American Pope. And without further ado, I'm joined by the Papal Posse, editor-in-chief of thecatholicthing.org, Robert Royal, and canon lawyer and priest of the Archdiocese of New York, Father Gerald Murray. Thank you both for being here. Father and then Bob, your thoughts on when you saw Pope Leo appear here, and we were all here watching, when you saw an American was announced. You thought what?
I was very surprised because I was of the opinion no American will ever get elected Pope.
Like the rest of us.
Exactly. So I kind of stereotypical thinking was guilty of that. But no, it was very beautiful to see him come out. He was wearing the traditional vestments. He gave a good message, and then he gave a very traditional blessing of the Pope as the new Pope. I was very pleased with that.
very first speech as Pope,
Yeah.
he thanked the people of Chiclayo and spoke in Spanish.
Right. The YouTube analysis we watched made a point of that. Even Pope Francis didn't do that in his first address.
So what's the message there?
It's a remarkable gesture, isn't it?
Yeah.
A potent symbol, perhaps, of where his focus might be. It probably resonated with a lot of cardinals, especially from Latin America, the global south.
And connecting that to the bigger picture. His experience in the peripheries, as Pope Francis called them, working with diverse communities, sometimes disadvantaged ones.
That could well have been crucial, yes. They might have seen someone with a truly global perspective, someone who gets the complexities of the church way beyond just Europe.
When you heard the news?
I was sitting in the living room reading a book. I got a message from a former teacher that said there's white smoke. So I went down to put the TV on to watch it, and then I saw it, and I called my niece to say, hey, she said she's watching it also, so we were watching it and wondering at what point would the curtains open. So maybe 45 minutes later, she said, look, the curtains are moving, and sure enough, they moved, and they opened, and out came the bishop from France, and he gave and we heard our name called, and she screamed, and I sort of, oh my gosh, this is for real. Is this happening? And then we just sort of listened to what he had to say, and she said, I'm going to call work, I'm not going in today. And I said, well, whatever it takes. And then we just listened and watched the people in the crowd and listened to his speeches, because he didn't say a whole lot in English. He used Spanish and Italian, so we didn't get a whole lot, but there were some subtitles. And then off went my phone, off went the cell phone, off went the iPad. Everything went off at the same time. And so trying to respond to all that, plus this, then the door went, and it's been nonstop since that time.
Go back for a moment, though. You hear the name, and you do feel what?
Shock, disbelief, a whole lot of pride, a whole lot of, is this for real? Now what are we going to do? That kind of stuff. Because this is an awesome responsibility that we have to live up to, that he has to live up to. People are going to be watching him from now on, closer than ever, and maybe us too, the family.
So tell me, what is it about your brother that you know will make him an awesome pope?
I think the very fact that in his heart, in his very soul, he wanted to be a missionary. He didn't want the bishop, he didn't want the cardinal, but that's what he's asked to do, so that's what he did. He would have liked to go back to Peru and work with the missions, because he had a deep feeling for the disenfranchised, for the poor, for those who were not listened to. And he had a very strong feeling, and I think in that way he will be a second Pope Francis. I think he'll follow right in his footsteps, working for the underprivileged. That we knew when he was young?
Yeah. Who said that? Under what circumstances? Tell me the story.
Well, you know how some kids like to play war and be soldiers, and some girls want to play dolls and be housewives. He wanted to play priest. And so he took our mom's ironing board and put a tablecloth over it, and we had to go to Mass. And we went to Mass, and he knew everything. He knew his prayers in Latin, he knew his prayers in English. And he did that all the time, and he took it totally serious. It was not a joke. It was not a game. He was dead serious about it. Isn't that interesting? Now, that's how you know. And the other thing, how we knew, when he was in first grade or kindergarten, one of the moms across the street and one down the street said to him, you're going to be the first American Pope. In first grade, they knew that.
Well, the general thinking the analysis suggests he's widely seen as a moderate.
A moderate.
Someone who could maybe bridge some of those divides in the church. His appointment as cardinal by Pope Francis just last year in 2023, that does suggest some continuity.
Right, especially on social justice issues, perhaps.
Exactly. And the name he chose, Leo XIV, that echoes Leo III, who is known for, his writings on social issues, workers' rights.
So continuity on social justice, like Francis, but maybe a bit more measured on the really contentious stuff.
That seems to be the read. The analysis we saw mentioned that, yes, he clearly cares about the poor, speaks against injustice, but he isn't expected to make, quote, big splashes on things like same-sex marriage, or ordaining women.
Which is kind of surprising in itself, given how much those topics are being discussed globally.
It is. It suggests maybe the cardinals were looking for, well, stability, unity. Someone who could appeal across the board without pushing for really radical change everywhere. The moderate emerging from that field, that's a story in itself.
Okay. And now, for something truly, truly shocking. A revelation that came out after the election. Pope Leo XIV has black family roots in New Orleans.
It's just astonishing, isn't it? And another layer entirely.
Totally unexpected.
Yeah, the news broke when historical records were confirmed. We're talking U.S. Census documents, early 1900s. They clearly identify his maternal grandparents.
Joseph Martinez and Louise Baquier.
That's them. Identified as black or mulatto while living in New Orleans, it just adds this incredible dimension to his background.
The details are just, wow. Their 1887 marriage license says Joseph Martinez was born in Santo Domingo, which was like Haiti back then.
Right.
But his father, the Pope's great-grandfather, was from Louisiana. So deep roots in the American South there.
And what's really striking, historically, is that later on they moved to Chicago. And the 1920 census lists the family's race as white.
Whoa!
It points to that historical practice of passing for white, often a survival strategy for families fleeing the South, escaping discrimination, violence.
And genealogists have confirmed this is plausible.
Oh, yes. They say it was sadly common, driven by very real pressures. And apparently, this history, it wasn't something openly discussed in the family.
His brother confirmed photos of the grandparents, knew about New Orleans, but said race just wasn't talked about.
That's what's reported, yeah. That's another layer of complexity, doesn't it?
And that term, Creole of color, specific to New Orleans. It points to that mixed heritage, right? French, Spanish, West African ancestry.
Exactly. A really unique cultural and historical identity rooted in that region. As one of the genealogists said, being Creole of color back then often implied an ancestor, somewhere back, likely enslaved, had fought for or been granted freedom.
Incredible history.
While they haven't found direct proof of that specific point yet, it highlights the intricate, often difficult history just beneath the surface, and the fact that someone with this ancestry is now Pope. It's just
unexpected doesn't even cover it.
Right, it really makes you rethink things, as the genealogist put it. But the fact that a descendant of that family is the Pope, really adds the element of surprise.
Okay, let's just pause and recap the sheer level of surprise here. First, an American Pope historic. Few predicted it.
Big shock number one.
Then, this profound formative connection to Peru. He's almost like a figure transcending one nationality.
Surprise number two, shaping his worldview.
And then, this absolutely stunning revelation. Black ancestry from the American South. A hidden part of his family story.
Surprise number three, it's just layer upon layer of the unexpected.
It really challenges all the conventional ideas about the papacy, doesn't it? Who gets chosen, what their background might be.
It truly does. It paints a picture of a man with this remarkably unique, multifaceted life experience. One that maybe reflects the global, diverse reality of the church now in the 21st century in ways nobody could have foreseen. The surprises just keep coming.